fairness, this may seem like a strange choice of game considering it's the first Master System game I've covered. Don't get me wrong, it's by no means my favourite Master System game, but it's one I have a lot of nostalgia for, and it's not a game you see an awful lot of people talking about. I was a big fan of classic Tom and Jerry as a kid, and I was really excited for the film to come out. And then the film came out, and I was very disappointed. In hindsight, I can totally understand why they went the direction they did, but a musical? Tom and Jerry were entirely silent in the cartoons. It was a shock to hear them talk, but sing? No thanks. The more I think about it, though, the more I realise how difficult it would be to adapt the real core of Tom and Jerry into a 90-minute feature. The only way to keep fans happy would be to essentially have a feature-length cartoon featuring mute characters, and, well, as I say, I can understand why they went in the direction they did. So, the movie was a wash, but how did the game based on the movie work out? Not too bad, in all honesty. It's a game that, first and foremost, manages to capture the essence of Tom and Jerry pretty damn well. That is to say, Jerry is a dickhead and Tom is an unsung hero. The game might initially trick you into thinking that this is going to be a relatively standard platform game, but the goal here is to run down that squeaky little sadist and throttle the life out of him. To do this, you are, in all fairness, going to need to do a spot of platforming, but it works in a much more considered manner than traditional platformers like Mario, for instance. It strangely has more of a Prince of Persia feel to it. Everything is cartoonishly over-animated, which obviously suits the source material down to a T. Running off a ledge sees Tom hovering in the air for a second, running into a wall flattens his entire face against it. Getting hurt by one of the multitude of things out to ruin your day will usually result in a specific animation for each thing. It looks pretty bloody nice, all things considered, and it's clear that the developers had more of an understanding of the original cartoon than the writers of the film did. This excess of animation does come with its own minor foibles though, and that's the controls. Everything is sticky. You need to be very precise with what you want to do at all times. Tom will either not do what you expected, or he'll just stand there pondering his existence. There are quite a range of controls to get used to here as well. One button will jump and the other will run, but you can't hold a direction while running or Tom just won't move. If you run and jump, you'll jump a horizontal length, but you can also do another horizontal jump by tapping a direction with the jump button. You can also jump up, but only if you press jump without pressing anything else. You can of course move left and right as well, but you can also do a shifty little sneaky walk or a big long steppy walk by pressing down or up respectively. Honestly, it's quite a repertoire of moves for a game of this ilk, and it does take a little getting used to. Trying to work out if you should walk, little step or big step when coming up to the edge of a ledge can lead to a lot more deaths than you'd expect. That being said, the game is fairly generous with its stock of continues. Continues are essentially lives, but you'll restart the level each time Tom cops it. Cleverly, get this guys, Tom is a cat, right? And cats are said to have 9 lives, so guess how many continues you get. Go on, have a guess. 8. You won't typically lose most of your lives from the hazards that are strewn around the stage. You've got a very generous health bar, and some levels even drop you a healing pot or two. Your biggest issues are going to be holes in the ground and letting Jerry get too far away. The game operates a sort of micro-machines mechanic, where falling too far behind results in an instant death. This usually isn't too much of a problem. Jerry likes to dick about at the opposite end of the screen to give you a chance to catch up. Although, this is incredibly annoying when he's in a section that you can't get to because you're waiting for the screen to move on. But thankfully this is a rarity. Loss of a life mostly comes when you're trying to climb vertical expanses. You'll end up going the wrong way and Jerry will waltz off like the smarmy little shit that he is and leave you stranded. This leads me to a bit of a crossroads on whether or not Tom and Jerry will be one you get enjoyment out of. It's very dependent on memory. There are multiple sections where, without prior knowledge, you may wonder what the hell you're supposed to do. Take this section for instance. Jerry walks off behind an area that you can't get through, and it seems at first like you're trapped, but you actually just have to wait for him to move on so that the screen lowers and this platform falls down and you can continue. The game has a number of sections like this, be it a set of platforms that have to be climbed in a very specific way, or a hole in the ground that only opens if you're too slow. In most cases, you need to know about these things beforehand if you want to have any chance of catching up to Jerry, so deaths from your lack of knowledge are almost inevitable. That being said, there are only 6 levels, so it's relatively easy to remember where to jump, where to climb, and where to run. And the game opens itself up quite nicely for speed running in particular. Each level typically ends with Tom catching Jerry in a sort of mini challenge standoff. This usually involves things attacking Tom while he tries to get to Jerry at the far right of the screen. If you're good enough though, you can actually catch Jerry mid-level, cutting out a chunk of potential dangers later on. It feels incredibly satisfying to do this, if only to watch Jerry finally get his comeuppance. And you'll want him to, because much like the cartoons, Jerry is very adept at screwing you over. Get too close and he'll leg it away from you, pushing the screen further to the right. Maybe he'll chuck a mine on the floor and your reactions aren't quick enough to deal with it. Maybe he'll walk along a set of pipes and drop water on your head, which for some reason hurts Tom, but whatever. Jerry is a little nightmare beast, and the quicker you can nab him, the more satisfied you'll be. And that's practically it for Tom and Jerry. The levels are varied, and side note, oddly laid out. You start off in a kitchen, then you go outside and wander about in the wilderness for a few levels, then you climb a mountain, and then the final level takes place in a child's bedroom. Okay. The music is well pitched and incredibly catchy. It's a game that, much like the cartoons, never overstays its welcome. You'll either complete it in 20 minutes or you'll die trying and maybe beat it next time. It's a game that is unremarkable in a lot of regards, but inventive and surprising in others. It complements the show that spawned it better than a lot of the cheaply thrown together licensed games you find at the time, and I think that alone is something worth revisiting the game for. Don't expect to be blown away, but do be thankful that both Tom and Jerry keep their goddamn mouths shut throughout.